Hi everyone. In this video we're going to take a look at continuing to build our students' web project. So in this video I hope to add the data access object that will actually access the spreadsheet. So we'll be creating a class for that within the students .data package. That's where we'll be primarily working in this video. So again, definitely let me know if you have questions. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right-click this package, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a new class. And this is going to be a data access object. We call it a data access object because we want to actually put the behavior and the work of talking to a database, or talking to our spreadsheet rather, in its own separate class. We don't want to put that into a servlet. The servlet's got enough going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick that into a data access object. And so there's actually patterns you can use. I'm going to be somewhat loosely following a design pattern. And we will go ahead and we will talk about more about these design patterns, this data access pattern. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and call this StudentsDao, again, for data access object. I'm not going to include any interfaces yet. I'm not going to inherit from anything. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe generate some comments. And I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. And we will see our StudentsDao class populate. So again, this is going to represent a student's data access object for accessing our students.xlsx spreadsheet. Okay. Now, we're going to need a couple things. One, we are actually going to be using the Apache POI library that we imported from one of the previous videos. We're also going to be storing that workbook and that worksheet objects that it helps build for us. Again, what I would recommend doing before attempting to actually talk to that spreadsheet and use it is you can actually go to Apache POI, and I type in tutorial, and that's where I learned how to do this. There's this one here. I also like this busy developers guide. We are all busy. I'm a busy developer. You're a busy developer. Check the busy developers guide, and it'll show you how to actually use everything. So again, it'll actually show you for the actual homework part of the assignment. It will show you how to iterate over cells and worksheets very quickly. And it will also show you how to create new workbooks. It'll show you how to create new worksheets if you wanted, and all that kind of stuff. So here we go. Oh, I should also mention real quickly on the Apache POI, I hope to be talking about this during class, but we're going to be using the XSSF features, the XSSF objects, the XSSF libraries. We want that one. We do not want HSSF. We don't want the H one. We want the one with the X, because this one will allow us to talk to the XLSX spreadsheets and Word documents and that sort of thing. We want to be more modern. This isn't 2005 anymore. We want to use the modern spreadsheets. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build a StudentsDao object. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to add a place to store my workbook object and my worksheet that I import using Apache POI. So again, Apache is going to do the hard work for us of actually opening that spreadsheet. I'm just going to make an object to store it. So the first I'm going to do is I'm going to make a private XSSF workbook, and I'm just going to call it a workbook. And I'm going to initialize that guy to null. And as you can see, Eclipse starts to complain. It does not have access to this XSSF workbook class. We need to import that, so I'm just going to hover over this. If you've done things properly, you should see this quick fix appear, import XSSF workbook, or under org.apache.poi.xssf.usermodel. That's the one I want. If things are not imported properly, if Maven is not working correctly, if you're not seeing it over here, then that's a sign that you may need to go back and to import that properly. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a getter and setter for this. I'm going to go ahead and do this the hard way. There's actually an automagic way you can do this. I'm going to go ahead and create a private setter. I'm going to go ahead and create a private void XSSF work. I'm going to call it, got the wrong name. I'm going to call this private void set workbook. And that's going to go ahead and it's going to take an XSSF workbook object, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to basically do this dot workbook equal to workbook. Again, so when we're trying to actually set this workbook, it will pass it in and store it here as our object. Then what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a public getter. So this is going to return an XSSF workbook. And I'm going to call it get workbook. It's going to take in no parameters. I'm going to have that return our workbook object here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I've got my getters and setters for my private object. I'm going to go ahead and create a constructor. So I'm going to call this a private or public StudentsDao, and I'm going to have it take the string. I'm going to have our constructor take in the file path. So somebody else is going to tell us where this workbook is located. StudentsDao will handle opening that workbook and getting things ready. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to go ahead and call this spreadsheet path. Go ahead and open that. There we are. I've created my curly braces here, and now basically StudentsDao will handle actually creating that workbook and opening it for us. Somebody else will tell us where it's at. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to create a new workbook object from some file path that is passed in. Again, somebody else will tell us where it is, but then we will handle actually opening that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set the workbook to a new XSF workbook. And I'm going to go ahead and pass in that spreadsheet path that somebody else gave us. Again, you're going to get an error here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add a throws declaration to this guy here. And so the reason I'm doing that, I don't want to catch this. I'm going to have my servlet, if there's any issues, I want my servlet to deal with that. I'm going to pass that exception up. So that should be pretty good for basically accessing and creating our workbook. I'm going to go ahead and close this web XML. Now, over in Students is where I'm actually going to instantiate that student's data access object. That's where I'm actually going to instantiate it and use it. I'm not going to do that in constructor, however. I'm actually going to do that in init. However, first I need a place to put my StudentsDao object. I do want it to, I'm going to make a class variable. And I think I'm going to go ahead and call that StudentsDao object, and I'm going to go ahead and call that StudentsDao. I'm going to equal that to null. Oh, and I'm going to make that private as well. Again, you'll get some little errors here. That's okay. We're going to hover over and we're going to import our data access object from the other Java project that we had created. Go ahead and save that. Should clean up any of the errors. Good. I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to create my new DAO object here in init. So I'm going to say StudentsDao equals new StudentsDao. And in here, we're going to pass in the file path to our spreadsheet, which is located here. It is a relative file path, it is going to be /students.xlsx. It is /students.xlsx. It is not res. It is not /res. It is just /students.xlsx. Again, if you have done this properly and done this well, then everything should go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little complaint because basically Eclipse wants us, or Java wants us to add a try catch. I'm going to go ahead and do that here. However, I'm going to delete their code here. What I'm going to do is I don't want to actually cover up this IO exception. I don't want to cover it up. I don't want to try this and catch it here and do some system.out. I don't want to do that. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to throw a new runtime exception. In there, I'm going to say, I'm going to give it a message and I'm going to pass in this E. So what this will do is this will actually wrap this IO exception in a new runtime exception. And then I'm going to say unable to open the Excel worksheet, workbook rather, and then I'm going to go ahead. I'll just leave this. This seems to be a good enough message for us. Again, if this path is wrong and we weren't able to open it, this will go ahead, it will catch it, but then it will wrap this IO exception in a new runtime exception. And so what you will see is that this inner IO exception will be wrapped in this outer runtime exception. And so we will basically start building exceptions on top of each other, which will give more details if we run into an issue. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to run this monster. I'm going to go ahead and click play. We're going to cross our fingers, and we're going to hope that we don't get that exception. Yep, we got the exception. Yep, so that means there was a problem. Darn it. Maybe I'll take away that slash. We'll go ahead and try rerunning that. Darn it. So we're getting some issues here. Unable to open up the invalid operation. Looks like we were basically not finding our students.xlsx file. I did expect there to be a slash here, and I find that highly interesting. That this was unable to actually find that there. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to adjust this a little bit. I'm actually going to create a new input stream. I'm going to call it input, and it's going to equal to a new file input stream. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass in the spreadsheet path to that guy there. Why are you grumpy? Oh, I need to import that. Again, you're going to hover over this and import it. There we are. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in that input stream here. So I'm going to create a new file input stream. Go ahead and give this a try. See if that gets a little less crabby. Again, getting this spreadsheet in there is really like half the battle. Darn it. Oh man, well, I'm gonna have to go look at my homework real quick to remember what I did here. I was doing this before as well. What did I do in there? Oh, okay. Yeah, I did it this way. Again, I wanted to do a video that showed you how to do this. It looks like we're gonna do get class, get resources stream, that's right. Accessing files in the dynamic web project is painful, so let's get resources stream. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close this project. Sorry about that. I don't mean to give you the runaround. Really, this is me developing code, and so I don't have any of this memorized. I need to look at my resources. I need to practice. I go through the same struggle as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do get class, and then that is a method, and then I believe it's get resource as stream. That's right. That's right. And then you would do slash students.xlsx. Okay. So again, this spreadsheet is not a regular file anymore. It's not. It is a resource, and we are going to get that resource as stream. Again, I wanted to go and make a video for you because I would not expect you to know this or know how to do this. I certainly wouldn't expect that. Okay. Now I'm going to delete this so the warning stops showing up. Okay. Now let's go ahead and give that a try. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and hopefully we'll have some better luck here. There we go. Good. Not getting exceptions anymore. That means it's working. Yes. Just had to do a little copy and paste. All right. Good. Good, 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 good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, now that I know that that StudentsDao object is actually working, now what we can do is we can actually create a getter and setter. We'll clean this guy up a little bit. We're going to make a private StudentsDao getter. So I'm going to call that get StudentsDao. And we'll have that return the StudentsDao object. And we'll create a private setter. Return void, it will be set StudentsDao. That will take a StudentsDao object. That's the type. And we'll call that StudentsDao. And we'll go ahead and do this dot StudentsDao equal to StudentsDao. Just like we've been doing before for all these things, except I'm going to make these guys private. And then instead of doing an equals here, I'm going to use my setter that I created. So set StudentsDao, and then I'm going to pass this guy in. So, okay, good. Now we have actually gotten our workbook. We have created the data access object. The spreadsheet is being imported properly. Finally, again, this can be really tricky. It's actually easier. I found it way easier to learn how to use a database than it was to use a spreadsheet. So again, however, there's a big data access pattern and a lot of stuff and connection strings and a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm trying to push off until later weeks. So we're going to be using an Excel workbook. And I also want to show you Maven and a few other things. That's why we're doing it this way. Now what I can do now is the good part. Now what I can actually do is I can start talking to that response. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this line. And now I can actually start building my web page that I'm going to return to the user. And that's what you will be doing. So you will actually be getting that workbook. So you will be doing get workbook. And you will be returning, you will be doing get StudentsDao.getWorkbook. You'll be grabbing that workbook, you'll be getting the worksheet, and I'll be showing you some tricks and how you can get that workbook as well. Then you will also be building your string, HTML, that you will be returning to the user and to the user's web page. So that's where my video ends and where the assignment picks up. So thanks for watching. I hope this helps you get started with importing that spreadsheet. Again, there's a lot of steps to follow to get and to talk to that spreadsheet. Definitely let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.